simple columnar. So that rules out esophagus. At the very bottom, simple squamous epithelium. That's part of serosa, although what's the name of the epithelium itself? Mesothelium. So because there's a serosa, that's going to rule out what? So anything above the stomach, it can't be esophagus or anything higher. There's no serosa up there. It can't be duodenum. It can't be descending or ascending colon. So we guys narrow the focus here. Is it stomach? Is it small intestine? Is it large? Flat. So we could rule out small intestine because it's going to have villi. So maybe stomach or maybe colon. So what can we look for to figure out if it's stomach? Muscularis externa. There's only two. So it's not stomach, it's not small intestines, and it's not esophagus. Large intestine. Follicles don't help too much because they're everywhere. Unless you happen to see a huge follicle or a huge collection of follicles, then that could mean you're in the ileum of the small intestine if you had villi, or it could mean that you're in the appendix, an outpocketing of the large intestine. So then there's another one that looks like that. And it's shorter, so the wall is thinner. And then what's the other big difference here? Huge follicle. So we know it's part of the large intestine. Thinner wall, but a huge follicle, so it must be appendix. And then what layer is this? So inner circular, outer longitudinal. From here to here is all submucosa, and then from here up, mucosa in this layer, muscularis mucosa, and all of these. Intestinal crypts or intestinal glands. And some books do differentiate between the crypt and the gland, and they use the crypt as the equivalent of like a pit, so like leading down into the gland, but our textbook doesn't make that distinction. So we're simplifying, so we're just going to go all intestinal crypt or gland, either is fine. The white cells, goblet. Should there be more or fewer than what's shown here? A lot more. It's large intestine. Tons of goblet cells in the mucosal glands of the large intestine. These are villi, so that tells you it must be small intestine. Very bottom, you have a serosa, so it can't be duodenum, so it's jejunoileum. Right? Throw them together, hybrid name, covers it all. Yeah, so I think they decided on the key to make it jejunum. It could be ileum. We'd have to see two side by side to compare. So if one had small follicles and the other had really large ones, then the one with large would be ileum, and that'd be Peyer's patches. How about the cells at the very bottom? Chief cells. Chief cells? That's the wrong organ. It's a small intestine. No chief cells. No parietal, that's all stomach. Paneth cells or enteroendocrine cells. Both are found at the bottom. I don't know which they're trying to show here. What's that? Uh-huh. Yeah, so probably enteroendocrine or paneth. Yeah. Enteroendocrine tend to be at the very bottom, so you see that in the small intestine and the stomach. This one is kind of similar to this one. On like here? Yeah, everything other than goblet is absorptive cells until you get to the very, very bottom. And then you find enteroendocrine and Paneth. So the very bottom of the model, there's no simple squamous epithelium. So this tunic is adventitia, and then this one does have that simple squamous. So this is
Serosa.
So who's got the adventitia in the small intestine? And we know it's small intestine because of the villi. And then this tells us duodenal as well. So adventitia and these submucosal glands. Okay, so those are duodenal glands. So for the most part, the submucosal glands are duodenal, and the mucosal glands are intestinal or intestinal crypts. Intestinal gland or intestinal crypt. What's the these red streaks coming up here into the villi? Smooth muscle fibers, and what do?
Move the villi.
Make the villi wiggle all the time. What do these duodenal glands secrete? And mucus. So put it together, yes, alkaline mucus. Bicarbonate mucus. So it's flat, but if you look from the side, it's a stratified epithelium, stratified squamous. So it must be esophagus. It can't be stomach or intestines. And then what else do you expect to find in the esophagus? Esophageal glands. So there's a duct, and these are esophageal glands, the blue. And your inner circular and your outer longitudinal, a little bit of adipose there, some blood vessels. Up here, this layer, muscularis mucosa. What's the purpose of the stratified squamous? Protection. So we see it again here. So that tells you esophagus. And then here, it's flat. We've got mucosal glands, no submucosal glands. So this is the stomach. What do you expect to see when you're in the stomach? A third layer not shown here, but we're not quite there yet, right? We're right at the junction. So a little bit further in and we'll start to see that third layer. But we already see gastric pits, the holes, leading into gastric glands. So the pits are the blue and the glands are the red, but they're not showing us the different cell types. And then what would the stomach have that the esophagus would not? And I'm thinking down here. But the whole thing has serosa, because again, we're at the transition point. So a little further up the esophagus, serosa will disappear. A little further down into the stomach, and the oblique layer will appear. We're just not there yet. So flat, and then villi. So where do you have the junction between the two? Either between stomach and intestine, small intestine, or small intestine and large. This is a giveaway here. Where do you have a crazy thick layer of circular smooth muscle? That's your sphincters. One of the biggest sphincters is the pyloric sphincter. So this is definitely junction between stomach and the small intestine. We just don't have those three layers of muscle at the junction, but it is stomach. And we know that this is duodenum, the beginning of the small intestine, and not ileum, the end, right? Because maybe ileum and colon, possibility, right? But this rules it out. You have all those submucosal glands, those are duodenal glands for sure. Follicle is pretty small, so not ileum, duodenum. So pyloric sphincter, we're right there. And then this one's got 1, 2, 3 layers. And a serosa, and lots of mucosal glands. Little follicle, definitely stomach. And they are highlighting these red cells. They're big, those are parietal. But the other ones, we can't tell what's chief, what's G, what's mucus neck. Gotta use pictures for that.